Okay. Okay, so welcome everybody to this week's Tanya class. Just a few service announcements. So first of all, this class is sponsored by Mala, who comes regularly. We're so grateful. Thank you. And sponsorships are always open, so please contact Rabbi Rebbitzin Wolf to sponsor a class. And it's in honor of her birthday, which will be in Mirz Hashem this week or today. Some today or sometime this week. So thank you so much for that. And another pretty important thing to mention is that this is the last class until the school year starts. So until about September 5th. I don't know what day that lands on, but we will be letting you know when this class will be resuming, and everyone should have a safe, beautifully uplifting summer up until the school year begins again. So Perek Chavav, we were in the middle of Perek Chavav. There's a lot to talk about in Perek Chavav. Perek Chavav is part of the troubleshooting middle section of the Tanya. That's what Rabbi Paltiel has coined that term. Because what has happened is the Chassidim who are coming to the Alter Rebbe, again, remember that the Alter Rebbe's Tanya is a Sefer Shel Eitzos, which means that it's a compilation of advice, spiritual advice when it comes to Avodas Hashem, that the Alter Rebbe was offering to all of his Chassidim, found that he couldn't quite support every single Chassid, invested himself into the Tanya, and created a sefer that incorporates everything that a person needs in order to progress in his Avodas Hashem. Now, Perek Chavav is the part of the Tanya where the Chassid who has been working on himself, he listened to what the Alter Rebbe said. We spoke about it last week, where he came for his first Yechidus, which was going to be a purely Torah discussion-based Yechidus. Then he comes to the second Yechidus, again, years in between, where the person is deeply working on themselves to even be worthy to come into the presence of the Alter Rebbe. Then he comes for that second meeting, and the Alter Rebbe gives him a direction in his Avodas Hashem, what he should be doing. And here, this man, this Chassid, is coming back again, and he's saying, Rebbe, I tried, it's not working. And last week we said, the Alter Rebbe said, okay, it's not working, so what's happening? Like, why is this not working? Something must be lacking. And the Alter Rebbe lights upon the idea of alacrity, joy, motivation, passion. There's something about your Avodas Hashem that feels heavy, that feels weighted, that feels lengthy. And there's something about it that is not working for you. A chassid has to have a lightness to him, a simcha. And so Perek Chavav is all about generating that energy and what's stopping you from experiencing or having that energy. So this chassid now is sitting down with the Alter Rebbe and he's saying, okay, so maybe I'm lacking this, maybe I'm lacking the alacrity. What do I do about that? What does that look like? No one ever has taught me that before. How do I incorporate that into my Avodas Hashem? Now, it's important to also note that there are many parts of Yiddishkeit or Judaism, sects of Judaism, that would say that simcha should not be a prerequisite, that simcha is not the forerunner of how to service Hashem. In fact, some people would say that it looks silly, or it's not respecting a Torah scholar for who he is. A Torah scholar should look respectable. He should always look reserved. He should take things very seriously. The Hasidic approach is the exact opposite. A person has to be light on his feet, removed from his ego. The way Hasidus looks at it is, if a person is reserved or serious or intense, it means that they're getting lost in their ego. As opposed to someone who is simchadik, joyful, light, then that means they're releasing their ego and there's space for God in their lives. So here we're going to be talking about this person who is bogged down by something. Now, we're not talking about clinical depression here, right? The Alter Rebbe is not a psychiatrist, psychologist, any of that, not a doctor in any which way. What he's offering is help in Avodas Hashem. So there's something here with this person, this chassid who's coming to him, that he's feeling weighted by something, by the difficulties of the world. And the Alter Rebbe says that the difficulties that are basically considered legitimate are three different ones. Basically, your needs. The Alter Rebbe is saying, I'm not talking, and here we're not talking about a person who, he wants a Porsche and can't get one, right? We're not talking about people who have desires and can't achieve those desires, because that's just disappointments. We're talking about someone who is really weighed down by the world, weighed down by needs that they are not being met with. And the Alter Rebbe is clear on what those needs are. Banai, chayai, mizainai, which means children, procreation, your life, your health. And mizainai is like, it technically means food, but it means your livelihood, right? In these three areas, somehow one of them or all of them, the chassid is lacking. This is a real crucial weight, legitimate problem that this person is being faced with. We're not just talking about he wishes he had this and he wishes he had that. We're talking about real financial issues, real health issues, real children issues. And those things are weighing him down. Now, what's interesting is that the Alter Rebbe's approach to it is very similar to like the very famous age-old question of tzaddik v'raleh. Like there's a tzaddik, there's a good person, and bad things are happening to him. This is a discussion throughout the ages. This is something that people speak to all the time. And there's many, many different answers to it. All of them obviously don't satisfy because it's such a painful, unique, and personal experience. And it's something that each person has to explore to themselves and accept the answer to themselves. It doesn't help to go to a class all about tzaddik v'raleh, I'm a good person and bad things are happening to me, and hear someone preach to you why this is occurring. Because ultimately it just feels insensitive and it feels painful because this is your real life and this is something that you're really struggling with. But what's fascinating is if you look to what a tzaddik's response, let's say the Rebbe or here the Alter Rebbe's response to these immense problems was, for example, there was a story of a woman who came to the Rebbe and said, and she really had legitimate problems. And she said, Rebbe, I'm drowning in my problems. And his response to her was, you don't have problems, you have challenges. And a person could hear that and think like, Hashem, that's so insensitive, right? Like a little empathy here, a little bit of, a little bit of sympathy, something to offer to this person. And it's important to put things into context. The Alter Rebbe, the Rebbe, other tzaddikim, when their response is coming from that space, it's not that they don't deeply feel the pain of somebody else, of a chassid, of someone approaching them. They feel that. And they also want to be maybe the only person who will gift this person with a different perspective. Because if I look at my problems as problems, then I'm stuck in my problems. I'm defining myself by those issues. As opposed to you being an independent neshama, you being an independent, pure soul that Hashem loves, who is being given challenges. And that's an entirely different way to look at it. Entirely different perspective. That might change your experience. Okay, so let's talk about this. Let's talk about the whole concept of tzaddik v'raleh. We'll start with the Rishonim. So Rav Sadia Gaon, someone who lived over 1,000 years ago, I can't remember the exact years. He's one of the first sources for discussing this issue, taking a more philosophical approach to this issue. And his answer, one of these very simple answers, and again, the answers, this is an emotional query and an intellectual response. So it's up to you to be able to be open to receiving this response. But Rav Sadia Gaon says, bad things happen to good people, and the reason for that is this is not an end. This world is not an end game. This world is not where we're supposed to be. What it is a byway. It's a byproduct. We're in a tunnel. We're in a hallway. We're on our way to somewhere else. And what you're experiencing here is affecting what's going to be happening along the way to Olam Haba. And he's saying your suffering here kind of conditions you and shapes you and allows you to experience what you'll have in the next world. That's Rav Sadia Gaon. Another perspective, the Rambam. Rambam lived in the 1100s. The Rambam takes an entirely different approach. And just for context, to understand who the Rambam was someone who had a miserable life. Everyone who he loved, like deeply, deeply loved and cared for, passed away. He grew up with his father despising him until he finally was smart enough to earn his respect. He was on the run constantly, and it was a very painful existence. It's not like he had an easy life at all. Yes, he was extremely talented, accomplished so much in his lifetime, not because it was easy. He was writing, in the helm of a ship in stormy waters. That's when he was writing all of his svarim, traveling, running on the go. That was what he was doing. That was what part of what shaped why he contributed to his svarim. He could see what other people were suffering through, and that's why he wrote what he wrote. Now, his perspective is a little bit different. He says, you're thinking that bad things are happening to good people. That's because you're conditioned to think that everything is bad. People naturally look at negativity and think that that is their life. He said that that's not what's happening. We have so much good in our lives that we're just not seeing. We're just not comprehending and acknowledging. The fact that it is a beautiful day, you didn't notice. The fact that there is, I could just speak to today's times. We're living in probably the most affluent, safe, beautiful era ever. The fact that you see a policeman on the street, instead of thinking, oh my goodness, are my seatbelts on? And am I doing, am I driving the speed limit? To be tremendously grateful that we live in a time where you see a policeman all the time, that there is a society that, to the most part, adheres to laws, that you are somewhat safe. If you call for an emergency, someone might answer and come to your rescue. There is so much here that helps us and could create a basis for us feeling so much goodness in our lives. And yet we get so used to everything that happens. I mean, even just air conditioning. I was thinking about it yesterday. I don't know if any of you experienced the power outage a few days ago, just for even 15 seconds. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, like all the things that we have that depend on electricity. How many times a day do I think I'm so grateful for electricity? Never. I never think that I'm grateful for electricity, because it's something that I have accepted that it's a part of my life. The AC runs on electricity. The refrigerator that keeps all of my food safe and digestible and healthy is running on electricity. The fact that, I don't know, my phone, any way of connecting with people in the world, so much of it runs on something that we just look at as natural. Like, this is what happens. And people who live off the grid are crazy. Actually, maybe people who live off the grid appreciate life a lot more than the way we do. And they're not experiencing bad in their life. They're experiencing the goodness. They're appreciating what they deeply have. So this is Rambam's experience. This is what Rambam is saying. He's saying most of people's problems is not really that Hashem is making bad things happen to good people. Most of the things that people are saying, oh, this is bad, he said it's either people doing it to each other or you doing it to yourself. That's what he said. Most of it is not really Hashem making that happen to you. It's not fate, like this terrible experience of fate. He said a lot of it is a person bringing that upon themselves, which is interesting because the Rambam also has a very opinionated view on food and what we put in our bodies and what that does and how it brings up so many health issues. And so he was of the opinion that maybe a lot of the health issues that happen, right? We were looking at Banai Chayai Mezainai, right? So a lot of the health issues, the Chayai, could be just you putting unhealthy things inside your body. And if you just knew what was right and what was wrong, you wouldn't do that to yourself. You wouldn't be experiencing the bad things happening to good people. So that's the Rambam. The Hasidic approach is very much based on this Rambam, where the Rebbe also had this approach. His approach was, I object to this premise. I object to the premise of bad things. The Rebbe didn't want not just to not hear about bad things, but it went against his essence to say that Hashem could do bad things. And we need to kind of understand that a little bit more. What does that actually mean? it's very easy to start drowning in that self-pity, right? It's actually in ways comforting. I know for myself, being in a space um, of pain, certain parts of my life, it was nice to know that other people would empathize all the time. If people really knew what I was going through, they would always be that, there would be that support system. There's something addictive about being in pain. The Rebbe did not accept that pain. He would send people and say, you should learn Shar B'Tachon. If you're having a hard time with something, it means that there's a lack of bitachon, and you should be looking at that. You should be looking at why you're not trusting Hashem to take care of you, and that the goodness that you're experiencing in your life, you're perceiving as bad. There's something wrong with the premise, is the Hasidic approach. So let's look at Shar B'Tachon for a moment. Obviously not going to learn this immense source all in one sitting, but there's a list of 10 levels of trust at the end of Shar B'Tachon that I think is worthwhile to discuss right here, right now. So what are the 10 levels of trust? Rabbeinu Bachya explains, the first level of trust is the level of a baby trusting that his mother's source of milk is going to be there. Even at the age of 1 day old, the baby is looking to see that the mother is there to support him, to give him food. He knows that it's there. And after that first suckling experience, he continues to know, right? He gets that proof, he gets that evidence, or she gets that evidence all the time that there is a food source there, and I'm going to trust that it shows up for me every day. Even if I can't see it, I know it's there. Second level of trust, how does this grow? That level of trust grows from the mother just being a source of food to being a mother who loves, a mother who supports, a mother who always shows up. She's there not just to give me food, but to hold my hand, to be there for me. So that trust has expanded to her as a person. Then the trust expands or grows where the child sees that this mother who is so trustworthy also heavily or deeply depends on the father. She interacts with the father in a way that she gains from him, she receives from him. So now that trust has now expanded to include the father. He is also a source of sustenance for me. He is also something that I could lean on and depend upon. After that, the next level of trust, the fourth level of trust, is a child then learns, I could also trust myself. I could also trust that I can take care of myself. So there's that growing period, expansion of, I don't only have to look at my mother and my father and a source of food as something that I can trust. I could also trust myself. I could reach and make a sandwich for myself. My mother is not the only one who could provide. Beautiful. Then there's a growth period of many years. And the child then learns that I could also trust others, right? So be it my boss, my employer, the person who comes to collect the garbage, a teacher. I'm now expanding my horizons. Now there are other people that I trust. I trust them to show up for me. I trust them to be there for me. I trust my boss to pay me at the end of the week. I trust the garbage collector to come and get the garbage on Friday. I am going to trust my teacher to teach me good information that's relevant information, something that I need to know for life. That's pretty basic trust so far. Now we're going to grow and expand into level 6, which is trusting Hashem. Now I can recognize there's an Eibishter, there's a God. But my level of trust here is not because I love or appreciate or see him. It's because I have no choice. I know that I don't have control over something. And I know that I can't rely on myself, my mother, my father, my food source, or my boss any longer. This is something that's out of my hands. So now my hands are tied. I'm going to trust him. That sounds more like just letting go, or actually just being honest and recognizing my limitations. That's the level number 6 of having bitachon, of having trust. A deeper level of that is, even when I know I can help myself in a situation, it's a dire situation, and I know that I can help myself, I'm still going to be courageous enough to admit that Hashem is in control. So it's not like this, like number 6, where it's like letting go and I know that I have no control over this. It's even when I feel like I do have control over this, it's a crazy situation, I could do something about it, I still know that I'm trusting Hashem to take care of this for me. That's level 7. Level number 8 is trusting in Hashem, not just in a dire situation, but in the simple things of life. I found a parking spot. Hashem made me find that parking spot. I'm pouring coffee. Hashem is making the coffee pour into the cup, and the cup is able to hold that coffee. Just the simple, everyday things that happen all the time. I have a level of trust of knowing that Hashem is involved. Hashem is here. Hashem is a part of things. That's level 8 of trusting Hashem. He's present for me. He's very much involved in my life. Then there's level 9. That when Hashem is doing something for me, whether it's seemingly good or bad, I trust that it is good. I can't understand that it is good, but I'm trusting that this is good, that He cares, that He loves me, that He is my Father, that He is involved. That's level 9. Even if I don't see it, I don't understand it, it's my experience. And I'm going to trust that this is Hashem taking care of me. Chassidus explains that there's a concept of blessing Hashem for the good and for the bad. The bracha for when something good happens to you is hatay v'ametiv. We say thank you Hashem for all the goodness in our lives. And we bless Hashem also when something bad happens, and we say baruch tayin emes. Hashem is the righteous judge. And it says that when Mashiach comes, when something bad is going to happen, we're going to say hatay v'ametiv. Because our perception is not going to be that this thing is bad. We're going to really deeply, truly see that it is good. We are seeing it from Hashem's perspective. We'll be able to see the truth. Hatay v'ametiv, even for something that is seemingly bad. It's a very high level of connection to Hashem, right? That's that's number 9, very high level of connection to Hashem. When David HaMelech in Tehillim says, Shivisi Hashem lenegdi samid, right? I have Hashem standing before me at all times. Chassidus explains the concept of Shivis. It's really the Baal Shem Tov explains through Chassidus that Shivis Hashem lenegdi samid means Shivisi comes from the word Shava. Shava means equal. That everything is equally to me from Hashem. The good, the bad, the ugly, everything is Shava. Shivis Hashem lenegdi samid means all that is coming at me is Shava. It's good. I see that it is all from Hashem. There's no differentiation. There's no distinction. The concept of Kabbalas Yisurim Me'ava, which means receiving Yisurim, which means challenges from love, seeing that these bad things that are happening are really the Eibishter giving me something, some sort of contribution. In let's say more modern language, divine design, right? Hashem has designed this for me. Hashem wants this for me. And it's somehow there for me as a contribution. It's good somehow. Now, it's a very, very challenging thing to see, to get to. We're talking about level 9 of bitachon. I feel like most people are at level 6 bitachon, where it's out of my control and I just have to rely on Hashem. There's a bunch of different levels, 7, 8, also to get through till you get to level 9, which is deeply seeing hatay v'ametiv in something that is bad that's happening in your life. And again, we're talking about really bad things, not I couldn't afford to buy myself something beautiful or special. We're talking about needs. The difference between needs and wants are changing all the time. Desires are ever changing. Needs are forever. They don't leave. They don't change. You need to eat. You need to procreate. You need to be healthy. These things are constants. And that's the area that we're talking about here. And that's the area that the chassid that's coming here in Perek Chavav, that's where he's suffering. And here the Alter Rebbe is saying, if you're coming back to me with your complaint saying, Rebbe, you told me to be happy. You told me to be joyous. I can't. I tried over a year. I tried to be joyous. I tried to have simcha, but I'm suffering with these things. These are really hard things for me. The Alter Rebbe says, okay, now we have to talk about something that is a corollary or is in correlation with joy, which is bitachon. Something that you have to be working on, seeing Hashem's presence in your life. And just to tell you what the 10th one is, even though we're not talking about the 10th level of bitachon here, the 10th level of bitachon, which is obviously a very high level of bitachon, is that materialism doesn't matter. I'm not affected by materialism. In fact, I despise materialism. To me, it's a negation of God. It's something that I don't even want to look at. We're not talking about that level. Here, what we're talking about is level 9. We need to strengthen our trust in Hashem when I'm looking at my needs and seeing that my needs are not satisfied. Now, an interesting concept to think about is Hashem's interaction with us, right? There are some people who say that Hashem could choose either to be honest with you or Hashem could choose to be kind to you. It's either or. What does that mean? It means that Hashem can make you have a good life and you'll just go through the motions of life. But there's something here that's lacking interaction. There is no challenge. There's no, I know you can do better than this. I see your potential and I know that you could rise. Imagine an example of a student with a teacher, right? And the teacher could be honest with the students or the teacher could just be kind, right? So the teacher could say, I'll just give you an 85 and let you coast through class, or I'll give you the 64, let you fail and realize that there's a lot here for you to work on. And I will help you. I will carry you through this. But you need to be able to be open to hearing what needs to change, that there is effort that needs to be involved here. So Chassidus looks at it and says, you want Hashem to be honest with you or you want Hashem to be kind with you? Unfortunately, you don't have the choice. Hashem chooses. Hashem chooses the people that he wants to be honest with, and Hashem chooses the people that he wants to be kind with. And in a way, it's a hard thing to hear. If Hashem is being really honest with you, it's because he feels a sense of intimacy with you. He trusts you to be able to hear that he loves you and wants this from you and sees your potential. He wants you to be able to rise to the occasion. He sees that you can. And I should be also talking about this in the first person because, again, this is not a concept that a person could hear in a classroom setting. It's very hard to receive a concept like this from just a teacher standing in the front of the classroom. This is something that's a very internal experience, and I should be speaking about myself, right? Where Hashem is looking at me and saying, Hindi, I want to be honest with you. And sometimes I want to be kind with you. And I could receive that and say, I know Hashem, I know Eibishter, that right now you're being honest, and I appreciate that you trust me, that you can see that I can grow and rise to the occasion. And I know that you're there holding me, hand-holding the entire time. So what does that look like? What does that look like? Later on in the Tanya, not here, there's a series of letters that the Alter Rebbe writes to Chassidim, responsa. And one of them is famously known as Lahaskil Chabina. It's a very intense letter. We don't really know who the chassid is. We know that he had a very hard life. And we also know that he is a big chassid. When I mean big, I don't mean egotistically big. We mean that he was so humbly a chassid. And he writes to the Alter Rebbe saying, I'm in a tremendous amount of pain and I can't handle it anymore. I'm up to here. I can't do it. And the Alter Rebbe's response is very intense. The Alter Rebbe's response is a little bit whipping him into shape and saying, this is a lack of bitachon. This is you not seeing that Hashem is reaching out to you. I love the way Rabbi Paltiel shares the story because he says that when he learned the Haskell Chabina, he went to his mashpia, his teacher, and said, I feel like the Alter Rebbe is being very insensitive here. And the mashpia tapped him on the cheek and said, don't worry, the Alter Rebbe would never write a letter like that to you. Right? Like, you're not going to get a letter like that. Right? If you're thinking about the Rebbe Chassid relationship, the Alter Rebbe was being honest. I could be kind to you and just say, yeah, it's really tough, it's really rough, and I'm so sorry, and sit there with you in the pain. And of course there's space for that, especially if you're a friend and not a Rebbe. But there's also space for saying, now it's time to shift. Let's shift our perspective. Let's see if there's something here for you to grow from. Can I make space and hold you in the idea that there's something here for you to learn? Maybe you need to grow. And when you have that experience, that shift, that opening from I'm in so much pain and I'm closed and I'm suffering, and that a little bit of like victim mentality. And instead, I'm open to seeing that Hashem really wants something from me here. And I'm opening myself up a little bit to the possibility of there's a message here for me. What happens is you become a different Kaylee. Something shifts, right? You're not the same person you were, this person who was limited to this experience. Now, when I open myself up to there's a God in the world, there's a Hashem, there's a master of the universe instead of a creator, right? If I just believe that there's a creator of the world, that means that I could even be believing in pantheism, that Hashem created the world and left it to fate, as opposed to master of the world, who is orchestrating every single detail of my life. He has mastery over this world. He is involved in the details of my life. When I could recognize that, see his involvement in my simple everyday life, what I'm doing is I'm opening myself up to him, to that relationship of honesty. I'm opening myself up to his love and his care. And by so doing, create a different reality. I can invite him into my reality and feel like Hashem is real, and Hashem who is real can do anything. Hashem who is real can change everything. There's a story of Rav Pinchas Kurtzer, who had a chassid, a very, obviously you'll see from the story, a very beautiful and serious chassid who was having a very hard time, immense challenges. And while he was davening one day, I believe he was davening, or just the thought came to him, I'm not sure. This thought came to him that maybe Hashem is not realizing how much pain I'm going through right now. Maybe Hashem is just unaware to the immensity of this pain. And he realized, I had a thought like that, that's not good. So he jumps into a horse and wagon and travels to his Rebbe's town, Rav Pinchas Kurtzer. And he rolls into town, and before he even gets out of the wagon, Rav Pinchas Kurtzer opens up the window, screams out the window, if I know about it, Hashem knows about it. Right? And this chassid literally didn't even get out of the wagon, turned around and went back home. Such a beautiful story, right? I mean, so many aspects of that. Like the chassid realizing I have a lack of bitachon, I have to go to my Rebbe. He goes to his Rebbe. The Rebbe knows what his experience is. There's so much empathy and intensity, but empathy in that response. I know what you're going through. I'm feeling it. You don't have to tell me. If I know, Hashem knows. And if you could get that reality into your mind, master of the world versus creator, he knows, he's involved, he's here, he's carrying me through this, then what can happen is I can shift that reality, which brings in a little bit of that concept of tracht gefet sein good. Tracht gefet sein good means think good and it will be good. And sometimes people say it flippantly, right? Just like think positive, everything's going to be okay. Definitely doesn't feel good when someone tells that to you flippantly, right? Yeah, just tracht gefet sein good. The Rebbe spoke about tracht gefet sein good as a very powerful tool towards creating an absolutely different reality. And what that means is a bitachon-based reality, a godly reality, where I can look at my experience as this is not me suffering in this world. This is me experiencing Hashem's honesty, Hashem's closeness. Hashem wants me. He wants me to see him. And if I could tap into it and open myself up, my limited self, to a godly reality, to a godly self, then what I'm doing is I'm shifting who I am. And again, this is not it's not a miraculous, it could be a miraculous thing. It's something that I could say for somebody else that this is going to solve all of your problems. But there have been many stories where someone was just focusing on the goodness. There was actually this story of a chassid who his son was literally dying. And he went to the Tzemach Tzedek, and the Tzemach Tzedek said, tracht gefet sein good. Which again, like that response is, it could feel so not empathetic. What do you mean? He's suffering. His child is dying. And the Tzemach Tzedek says, tracht gefet sein good. So what does a chassid do? He goes home and he does exactly that. Everything's going to be okay. I know he's going to be okay. He's going to live a happy, successful, fulfilled life. And what happens? That level of bitachon creates a different reality. And his son recovered and lived a very long life, a healthy, long life. Is that a miracle that the Rebbe created? Is that a miracle that the Chassid created? Is it both of theirs? Or is it that this is exactly what Hashem wanted? Hashem wanted to be honest, to bring that Chassid close, see that I am involved. And as soon as you see that, I don't have to ask you anymore to see it. You're there. You've opened up. Now you're experiencing the Taiva Ametiv in whatever it is that you were perceiving as bad. You changed your perception, you changed your reality. When you make Hashem real, he becomes real. He's really involved in your life. So Perek Chavav is a very powerful, very intensely focused interview with the Alter Rebbe, where he's saying, I deeply see you. And you should know, if I see you, Hashem deeply sees you. And the things that you're perceiving as bad, it's just an opportunity for you to deepen your bitachon and expand yourself. But that's only something that you could look inward and do for yourself. It's not something that someone can do for you or preach to you. It's something that you have to look inward and say, how can I expand myself a little bit more every day? Would learning Shar Bitachon help? Would thinking about all the things that I have in my life increase my gratitude help? Where can I keep a gratitude journal of all the ways that I see that Hashem is there supporting me? Find that evidence. See his involvement in my life. Should I set up reminders throughout my day? 4 reminders throughout my day, even on my phone, thinking about Hashem. Stop getting involved in my own reality and make Hashem real in my life. So again, it's a very personal exploration, and it's uniquely something that each person, when they explore it, will impact them in their own way. But the Alter Rebbe is saying here, if what I've told you so far is not working, we need to talk about joy. And if that joy is not working, it's because there's a lack of bitachon, because someone who has bitachon is experiencing joy. He's experiencing that level of living. Again, like we spoke about last time, joy is not a result of something, it's a state of being. It's not like I got a compliment, so now I'm happy. That's not what joy is. That's feel good. Joy is a state of being. It's a deep, essential awareness of Hashem and your neshama, your deepest part of yourself. And when I could see that and live that joy, then I am living bitachon. It's one and the same. So that is Perek Chavav. I want to give you a bracha that the rest of the summer should feel joyous. We should all be in that state of being, and we should merit that this Tisha B'Av is not a Tisha B'Av in this shul stuck in Los Angeles, but instead in Yerushalayim, in my Yisrael in Yerushalayim. And we should see the Beis HaMikdash very soon and experience that joy. Thank you. So sweet. So welcome.